training and
Sorry.
that's okay. So that's kind of where it obviously began before that for me. I've taught that physical side of wellness for quite some time. So I've well trained in that side of fitness leader, personal trainer, did all of those kind of things. But I always knew that there was that other piece that was kind of missing in it. How do we get people to come and keep their physical health together? But if we're not going to handle all those other pieces in life, that's usually the barriers that get in the way. So as we moved forward in life, I just thought I needed to add more to that. And like Paula was saying, we have our yoga training, but we've done the psychological health and safety. I'm passionate about the wellness in the workplace because we spend so many hours there that I really do feel that is one of those which could be a barrier to make sure that our overall health, our holistic health, is not taken care of as well as we should. So, like Paula was saying, we've taken that psychological health and safety. We have all these different aspects that we've finally brought together in our Sage Wellness Connection. And now we're opening that up to other collaborators and things like that as we work in this industry, because we know that it's bigger than just us. We need this whole community to be able to work together in order to support people. So we're just trying to broaden that and broaden our skills, and hopefully we'll be able to capture all the things that people need.
Sorry. Now it's gonna not be cooperative to me.
Yeah.
So because we do have a few lunch and learns that are coming up, and then we have our own another webinar tonight that's part of our rural mental health project. You'll just have to bear with us a little bit when we reference other sides of to wellness, because I know that's going to happen. We have a lot going on lately, which is really exciting, and I think that's goes back to what Shannon's talking about, how it takes a whole community to really address these issues, and that's why we really do appreciate that we can be involved in this project with FCS and our community here. So today we are going to discuss the dimensions of wellness. We're going to focus on 4 of them today, which is the emotional, social, spiritual, and physical well-being domains. And we'll just take a look at the wellness wheel as well, and what wellness is to us. And then we'll talk a little bit about what wellness is to you. And there's no wrong answers here. So we really encourage you to just jump in and share your views and opinions with us on this.
So this is that slide that I said you're going to scroll up to the top and look for that view options, because we're going to do some annotation. That means you can actually type right on our slide, and then we save that. And like Paula said, there's no right or wrong. It's just, what does wellness mean to you? And maybe it's just, what does wellness mean to you today? Because that could look different from last week to next week to even tomorrow. But whatever you're feeling that means to you today, if you just want to pop that on the slide, that would be great. We'll give you about 3-4 minutes to do that as we go. So it's just under, some of you missed that, just up at view options, you look for the annotate, and then you'll see a whole tab come across with the text.
And you can just hit text, and then you should be able to write right in there. And it's interesting to us as we've gone through these workshops to see where people's well-being sits at in the different months of the year. And this is the first one we've done since the weather's been nicer. So it'll be interesting to see where we're at. Sorry, I have something on the screen.
You wonder if that will change for people, that ability to get outside or be a part of, just even seeing the sun. I know in my office, when I'm actually at work, I don't have any windows, and that can impact me quite a bit. So that can look different for me as well. I don't know if we can move some of those.
Yeah, so I was just trying to. All that wants to pop up for me is mine. Oh,
yeah.
Uh-oh, sorry.
If you have a chance and you've written on there and it's gone across somebody, if you just and click on your box. You should be able to move it. If not, we'll figure it out.
Mhm. Sense of peacefulness, happiness. This is what I see so far. Low anxiety, joy, confidence, peacefulness, healthy relationships. Feeling good, energized, refreshed, feeling good mentally and physically. Fulfillment, happiness.
And what I like about some of these words that we're putting up today, that really does, that's that piece that we talk about, that it impacts more than just one area of our wellness. That could speak to our emotional wellness, could speak to that social piece of our wellness, even the healthy, right? Well, that could mean our physical wellness, or it could be our spiritual wellness. Are we feeling healthy in that component? Relationships, we know, are probably, not only fit within that social piece, but do impact our emotional wellness and all of those things. Um, and as we get into our next slide, or I'm sorry, next presentation next week, that financial piece is often one that can get in our way when we talk about that balance of the wheel.
Balance in all aspects and a healthy work-life balance. That's awesome. We just wanted you to see this up on the screen. We will be addressing some of these issues. They just come up naturally during the presentation. So we'll give you another couple seconds here if you want to stick something up there before we move on. So Shannon, because you usually have control of this part, do I just clear the drawings before I move on then?
Yeah, I'll just save it.
Okay, perfect.
Did anyone else have anything else put up? I'm just going to hit the save button here. Saves, yeah, and then I can just hit the clear.
I do have to say that Shannon and I have presented together, and we do training in our other jobs as well. One thing that we've learned, and I think this speaks to our understanding of our balance and what we need, is that we share the responsibilities when we're presenting, and it makes a huge difference, because you'll hear us talk about this later, that you don't need to accomplish everything and be in control of everything to have success and feel well and healthy. A lot of that balance is really about accepting what you can do and allowing others to do their part as well. And sharing responsibilities for us is a huge piece of, someone said low anxiety. I think if I had to do this all on my own, definitely my anxiety would be much higher.
Absolutely.
Go ahead,
We'd
Shannon.
say that that's why we always look to people first when we want to hear what you have to say, what you feel that wellness or well-being means to you. For us, we put together a philosophy that spoke to both Paula and I, and that is about that holistic piece. We truly believe that you can't just have one area, and we tend to do that. Something that we do well, we really like to focus in. Like I said, when I started my fitness career, I was very focused on that physical well-being piece, but that didn't mean the rest of my life was in balance, but it was something I knew how I could do it, what I could do, so I felt in control. But for us, we know that to truly feel that sense of peace or fulfillment, you must collect all of the pieces of what we would call our wellness wheel.
And definitely what both of us have learned, because again, my experience was similar in that my physical wellness, I thought that was the way to create that balance. And um, I was doing very well in the physical side of things, but that really threw everything else out of balance. And it actually came to a point for me, probably about 15 years ago or so, where when I thought I was very healthy physically, and everything just all of a sudden, um, for lack of a better word, came to a halt, and I became ill, and I had to address the other areas of my life. And it took a while for me to really wrap my brain around. I was physically healthy. Why is this happening to me? What can I do? And I almost had to take a few steps back before I could actually move forward to really look at my wellness as a whole and decide how I was going to move forward.
Absolutely.
Oops. So Shannon, I meant to actually copy and paste it. Um,
So what we like to do is we just found a neat little video that just encompasses all the aspects of the wellness and the wellness wheel that we believe in. You'll see multitudes of different type of wheels. As if you look on the internet, you Google anything about it, some people say 7, some people say 8. For us, we felt that it was more balanced with the 8 and really breaking up those aspects in 8. So this little video kind of encompasses all of those pieces, and then we'll move forward from there. Like
we
Paula said,
have to
though.
go into the just actually talking about the domain, Shannon, because it's just going to take me a minute to pull
Oh,
this up.
absolutely. Yep. So, like we said, today we're going to focus on the emotional, social, spiritual, and physical side to things. As far as the emotional piece, um, I think people just naturally think that it's only about feelings, right? And we get so focused on just the feelings piece. And some of us maybe don't do well in that domain. So maybe we run back over to the physical side of things. But it is more than just feelings. It encompasses all of the aspects that um, that maybe in our interconnectedness with our relationships. That's why the social piece is so close to that, and why sometimes we get confused that if we're not feeling well, why are we stressed, right? Stress is a big part of our emotions. So maybe that is because our physical health isn't going well. So therefore, that's impacting our emotional side. But I'll let you watch this first and then we'll go back.
Wellness is an active process of being aware and making
Hear that?
choices toward a healthy and fulfilling life. Wellness is more than being free from illness, it's an ongoing process of change and growth. There are 8 dimensions of wellness: emotional, environmental, financial, intellectual, occupational, physical, social, and spiritual. Each dimension of wellness is interconnected with the others, and all are equally important in the pursuit of optimum health. One can reach an optimal level by understanding how to maintain and improve each dimension and by creating balance. Understand your feelings. Express them to people you trust and maintain a positive outlook. It's important to pay attention to self-care, relaxation, stress reduction, and the development of inner resources so you can learn and grow from your experiences. Find surroundings that encourage good physical and mental health, and also where you feel safe. A positive environment has a calming effect. Environmental wellness inspires us to live a lifestyle that is aware and respectful of our surroundings. Make it a point to understand your finances. Money plays a critical role in our lives, and not having enough impacts health as well as academic performance. Establish good financial habits and plan for the future. Be a lifelong learner by expanding your knowledge and finding creative outlets that stimulate your mind and sense of curiosity. Be open to new ideas, insights, and wisdom. Actively participate in scholastic, cultural, and community activities. Look for satisfaction from things you're passionate about, whether they are part of work, school, or volunteering. Find ways to engage in occupational endeavors and feel appreciation for the value in your contributions. Reduce your risk from many illnesses by increasing activity levels according to your abilities. Get restful sleep at night, choose healthy foods, and explore the outdoors to reduce stress and increase energy levels. A sense of belonging and a reliable support system help during difficult times. Make at least one social connection daily. Seek advice from peers or support groups and create healthy friendships. Enhancing your connections to self, nature, and others brings balance and peace to your life. Disconnect from distractions and be mindful. Discover what values and beliefs are most important to you. Striving to maintain or make small improvements to the 8 dimensions of wellness is the key to your overall health. The pursuit of continued growth and balance in the 8 dimensions of wellness will lead to a better quality of life. In this module, you will explore each dimension and how nutrition plays a vital role in being the best you.
I just think it's a neat little video just to show how everything must come in balance. Those 8 dimensions are interlocking, interconnected, however you like to say that. And that's a big piece of what we truly believe in, that you, in order to truly create the balance, you've got to look to all of those dimensions. Not everything is always going to run optimally. We, in our wellness wheel, we have an assessment that we put out to people just so they can really look, and it often surprises them in areas that they feel like they're doing really well and really strong in, that there's actually some areas that you can work on. And that's how you determine where to begin. It doesn't mean your wheel is always going to be perfect, like, a tire on your vehicle, but it does mean that sometimes we need to pump up with a little bit of air in one of the areas. Something as simple as this past year, we've been somewhat disconnected from people based on issues outside of even our control. So something as simple as just connecting with somebody daily could be something that will build up not only our emotional wellness and our social wellness. It can reduce some stress that could impact those other pieces like your job, that occupational piece, in order to just get the job done. So this is where we were talking about how we would, when we go across that assessment piece and really look to each one of the areas, we grade it between a 0 and a 10, and then just determine, oh, okay, I never thought of that spiritual piece. I really thought that was a strong area to me, but maybe that's something across the year I've been so focused on work or so focused on getting things done that I've let that go. And that's why I'm not feeling like I've had that time to really connect to something that is bigger than myself.
And sometimes when we're looking at the areas of wellness, we don't look at the complete picture. So um, it often depends on your background, your experiences, your upbringing. So Shannon's using spiritual wellness as an example. That's a really good one because often we have spirituality in a box, and we think we have to fit within that box to have good spiritual wellness, for example. And so when you expand your thinking and look at the holistic picture of what wellness is, you might realize that spending a Saturday afternoon in nature, just walking and just simply being out in nature, maybe that actually does speak to you and it has a spiritual impact in your life. And so maybe you might have thought you were too in the area of spiritual wellness, but when you look at the bigger picture, oh, all those things actually really speak to me and they really connect with me on a spiritual level. Well, maybe that takes your spiritual wellness up to an 8, for example. So just a different way to look at things. And this is the personal assessment that Shannon was talking about. And if you're interested in taking a deeper look at that, we can email that out to you. So just let us know. And it talks about how you can score it and put it on the wheel.
Just like we said, it's just that dive in a little bit deeper in each one of the areas. Um, really come up with a good assessment. So you're not just looking at a box saying, oh, I don't know, maybe about an 8, maybe a 10. I'm not sure, but that just give you some more concrete ways to actually make that evaluation. So as far as our emotional wellness piece, I was just, thanks, Ashley, we'll make sure we get that to you. we wanted to really say that it is bigger, it is of course about understanding your feelings, because often we don't. Sometimes we wake up and we feel anxious and we're not really sure why. Sometimes we have to take those steps back and really figure that out. It comes around that coping, that resilience, resiliency piece, but we have to look to those stressors and the challenges within our life to truly be able to dive in to what that emotional wellness is to us and how that is impacting us.
And emotional wellness is, we like to start with this one because so often we look to our emotional wellness as a reason why we're not feeling well. And it is one that we can easily get down on ourselves about and think there's something wrong. Oh, there must be something wrong. I'm feeling this way. I can't manage my emotions. I don't have emotional regulation, all of it. But often it's one that when you look to the whole wheel, that maybe it's something else that's really at the core of the concern that you're having, and it's just manifesting in an emotional way. And so that's why we like to look at the dimensions of wellness as interconnected, because they're not, it's not just one on its own. One aspect does not work in isolation.
And I think what's interesting is, having worked with kiddos the majority of my life, is this is a piece that is often missed. We see a whole bunch of behavior because that's the kids that they're usually bringing me in on. And it's just a whole bunch of behavior that is usually kind of negative. We're not really sure how to manage it, but it often has to do with that, as Paula had suggested, that emotional dysregulation. So they can't connect. They don't, maybe not even sure which emotions are at play, whether it's I'm really mad, I'm very sad, I'm very stressed, I'm very
I'm
anxious.
in pain.
Yeah, in pain because of things that they've experienced, but they don't have the words for it. And we always think that seems pretty reasonable in kiddos. But if you're not taught that across life, you're going to be the same as you were as that kiddo, to not be able to truly identify which emotion it is and how it's impacting you.
Or because you have an emotion. I think for myself, I was taught that being a sensitive person was not a good thing. And so then many of us, I think, spend a lot of time actually trying to rein in our emotions or suppress our emotions. And then it has to come out somewhere. So that's where it will often manifest in other areas and disrupt that balance.
And just even looking at those traditional roles and things that people have been given around not showing emotion as well.
Mhm.
Right. So often, and I still see it in our kiddos today, and we're in 2021, where they've been taught, yeah, if you play a certain role in your family or you are a certain gender, you should not show emotion in a certain way. So it is just, for many of us, just really learning that, really appreciating what our history has brought to us, but also challenging that history to maybe look at emotion in a different way.
And figuring out what we can do for ourselves when we are feeling off, because there's going to be times where even if you understand, you have a PhD in the wellness wheel, you're still going to have times where you're not understanding why you're feeling the way you are. And that's okay. That's natural, but it isn't, I guess what we're trying to promote is that if you're feeling out of sync in one area, don't let everything become out of sync because of that. How do you move forward in those off times?
Yeah. And I think that's such a great point, because that tends to be what happens, is where the collapse begins, right? Is if one place is super stressed, we retreat from everything. And that's the key. What we're trying to say today is just acknowledge it. Maybe we can't fix the pieces quite yet, but let's stay up on those other pieces, because that will help you wrap around and maybe figure out what these pieces are getting in your way to move forward with.
So, because we do have a very short amount of time today, we're not going to go through this personal reflection in depth. Um, are you able to see this screen completely, Shannon?
I am.
Okay, so if you want to take a picture of the screen, or we could send you out the personal reflection questions, that would be great, because it is a good exercise. We did a journaling challenge in
Okay.
January, and a lot of the topics each day went back to reflecting on questions such as this. So it's really good to go through, even just read through it, think through it, write it down, however works for you would be great. Does anyone want to, if any question stands out for you today and you want to share a little bit right now, that would be great. If anyone would like to do that before we move on, we can definitely listen to what you have to say. Maybe what I will choose, one that I think is important for us to address because we are in a community session, is when you do need support, who do you access?
Mhm.
Maybe, does
And
anyone
it can
have, sorry, go
like
on, Shannon.
I think that's so important right now because we've been in a situation where our worlds are changing. We're never sure, oh, maybe your kids are at home now because, everything's been shut down, or maybe they're just going back. So the consistency and the scheduling, can create a whole bunch of concern, and really can impact us emotionally. So it is, who do you connect with?
Mhm.
So I guess for parents, like how Shannon brought up, that kids are home, right? And it's always back and forth, like they're homeschooled, they're not homeschooled. So even people to connect with, lots of family and friends, right? Like if you need that support, and say even if you need a break, like you're working from home and your kids are going to school at home, if somebody's home during the day who can even take your kids, right?
So
give
really
you-
accessing those natural supports
yeah.
is so important. It doesn't have to be someone that you spend money on to be able to talk to. It can just be those natural supports and looking outside of ourselves and realizing that it's okay to ask for help. That's great. Thanks,
Absolutely.
Autumn. And then, of course, there are lots of people in our communities, and it just takes a little bit of time to seek them out sometimes, especially when you're not working in the field. And so, for example, FCS, perfect place to connect with because they can definitely direct you to different resources in the community. Attending workshops such as this, it's awesome as well because it's just a way to look at things a little bit differently. So as you go through this, if you have any questions, please email us, message us on Facebook or Instagram, and we can answer your questions and offer some more ideas for you as well.
So moving into that social wellness piece, that is what we are talking about earlier, making a connection, right? We have, like, Autumn brought up, the kids are in school, the kids are not in school, you're doing some work at home, you're trying to rearrange everybody. Sometimes that social piece, even though it feels like you have a lot of people and you're juggling lots of people around you, but that doesn't necessarily actually build up that social wellness piece because it's more of a management piece as well. So how do we step back, reflect, and figure out what would work for us so we can stay connected and be able to have people, peers, romantic partners, even carve out that little bit of time when our schedules are so all over the map. How do you carve out that time? How do you create that healthy piece to it where everybody's needs are being met in that, because it may look different and it could change so quickly, because like this whole year has changed so quickly for us.
Um, and I think the next slide is really important as well because the emotional wellness is focusing on yourself and the social wellness examines the broader sense of who's in your circle, I guess. And I think it's important to note social wellness can actually be a little bit overwhelming because if you look at our influences around social, what determines how we should be socially, often it's the media, right? And the media is obviously addressing one lane, and we need to figure out what works well for you. So for myself, I'm a little bit more of an introvert. I am okay to be in social situations, but I don't find that that's what really lifts me up. I don't need to recharge around a lot of people. I need to recharge just on my own. So how can I expand and have balance with my social wellness, but do it for what works for me. And for me, often I find that just connecting with my coworkers in a work setting, or talking to a friend on the phone, or just even having a, text message with people, that can be enough for me. It can often throw my social wellness out of whack when I'm trying to be someone I'm not, and I'm trying to put myself out there more than what I'm comfortable with. Obviously, there are times where, if it's affecting your life negatively, you have to learn to figure out how to expand your views and challenge yourself a little bit in maybe one area or the other. But you still have to basically decide on what is going to work for you and be okay with that. And that does take a little bit of thought again. Um, do some reading, do some research, journal, figure out what's going to work for you, and don't try to maybe just take that middle lane where you think you should be, if that makes sense.
Such a good point, because then we add in that other layer of a relationship.
Mhm.
So typically, right, your histories look a little bit different, your families are a little bit different. So maybe that connection looks different, how often you connect with family, or maybe you don't connect with family very often. And then how do you find that balance between the two of you? And it really comes down to communication and good reflection on both sides, because there is no right or wrong in this. It's like Paula
Mhm.
said, more feels more of the introverted person, even though this would suggest otherwise, going out and doing webinars and all of that. And so it's often would be misinterpreted, right? That, you would look like a person that would want to be out, want to be in front of people all of the time, as opposed to the person that loves to do this, but really needs that other side. So it's really finding that balance even with your partner too. There's no right or wrong, like I said, but good communication is about the only thing that is going to fix
Mm,
that, and find
absolutely.
between the two of you,
Yeah. I think we talked about this.
because we'll probably run out of time here if we don't
Yeah.
move.
And again, if you want to take a picture of the personal reflection and you want to do that on your own time, that would be awesome. I think that's really important to work through. Again, like Shannon was saying, in relationships, we need to be able to communicate our needs and realize that what we need is okay. And sometimes, just even through that process of communication and having that back and forth conversation, you realize that maybe once you talk about it, you feel a little bit safer, because you have someone that's starting to maybe see why you're doing what you're doing, or why you need to do things a certain way for you. And it just opens things up in a different way.
Absolutely. And I'm a big believer in Brene Brown, if you've ever pulled up any of her stuff. And she talks lots about boundaries. And I think this really, we we have to talk about boundaries, but we have to talk about our own boundaries in order to have a good communication with someone else, right? If we feel that somebody's expecting more out of us, that's our boundary, right? So we can go in a whole other probably webinar to talk about that, but it's certainly something to think about when you're reflecting about the importance of your social well-being, or even your emotional well-being as well.
Moving on to spiritual wellness, this is a really to me, this is a really broad one, and we're not going to be able to even get close to really diving into it too much here. But it's definitely one that many of us, I think, our needs around our social wellness also change over time. And so, to develop that broader understanding of what spiritual wellness is, would be a great opportunity to use that personal assessment as well.
Absolutely, because it can mean so many things. And often we hear so many terms, once again, in the media and so on, about what spirituality should be, or spiritual wellness should be. But really, once again, this is something for you to reflect upon, of what speaks to you, and really challenging yourself that if what hasn't worked in your history, maybe there's something new in your future.
Sorry, I was just checking on the chat, and there are a few people who want that assessment, so we will send that out for sure. I know when it comes to, sorry,
Sorry, go ahead.
I know I was just trying to move the slide and it wouldn't move. I know for myself, spiritual wellness actually had, uh, it was a challenging one for me as I became an adult, because I had parents that came from very different backgrounds and had very different spiritual practices in their own respects. And that wasn't really instilled in us as children. And so I always felt that I was missing something, but I didn't know what. And because I didn't have any practices that I thought were spiritual practices as a child, to me, I just thought this wasn't available to me. And again, around the time that I developed an illness was the time where I realized that that was something that was hugely missing in my life. And I had to figure this out for myself. What works for me? What is going to be okay for me and is not going to um, create those feelings of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough in the spiritual aspect. So looking outside of that box for me was really important. And that's where I discovered the Reiki practices and um, meditation and being in nature and yoga. And all of those things for me just really allow me to have that deep spiritual side to myself and really bring about meaning to my life as well as peacefulness.
Because I think this is certainly something that we're all striving. You look at how many times peace was put on that very first slide,
Mhm.
what wellness meant to you, because we're just looking for that balance, just that sense of calm. And often, like we said, you have to carve that out in the world that we live in. And it's really taking that time, because it is as important, like we said, as working on your physical health. Going for that run every day is as important as sitting back and reflecting on just that overall sense of well-being, that overall connected, that this world, there's something bigger and broader than us. And sometimes our histories, again, really push us in to a silo or a box, but maybe allowing yourself to expand that. And maybe there's that ability then to find that really sense of peace and calm that we're all looking for.
And again, take a picture of the personal reflection, and we can send these questions out to you as well. I really like what word you're using, Shannon, today. You've said carve it out. And that's, I think, really important to note that. I guess it's just given me a really good visual when you're saying carve that out. It's just that we don't have to allow our lives to just move forward, and we kind of float along with them. We can really be purposeful in what we're doing and carve out the time for, to look at whatever aspect you're looking at. And I think that's how we're going to get that peacefulness. That's how we're going to get that balance in our lives. And I think it's important to note that because we're saying all of this is interconnected, we don't look at things as like work life balance. It's all life. And how do you um, allow that interconnectedness, that balance with just like the one life, instead of I'm going to have balance in my personal life, but my work life, there's no hope. I have to just let that be out of balance. Just try to look at it as your life as a whole, and how do you strive to carve out time, carve out meaning and purpose in each of those areas of wellness.
I think that's such a great point, because even if it is like we're about to move on to our physical health, even if you're at work, it is okay to take that time to go out for that walk or whatever it is, because maybe after work, you've got to grab the kids, make supper, get them to go where they're going, get them to bed. You might not have that time to carve it out for yourself, but it's really important that the work time is incorporated in that whole life piece,
Mhm.
separate.
We have one girl in our office who we have cubicles in the middle, so you can walk the full square, and you'll often see her. Every hour she'll get up, try to look at her steps on her Fitbit, and she'll walk around a few times. And in the meantime, she's seeing people, not as much because of COVID, but before COVID, she was seeing people in their cubicles, and she'd get a little bit of that physical wellness, probably engaging her social wellness as well. And there's just so many ways to be able to achieve wellness in your life. You just have to sometimes think about it differently, and also express your needs, not only in your relationships you're in, but also to your employer. If that's, maybe you're in an office where that would not be easy to just get up and walk around, because people might wonder what you're doing. Bring it up in a staff meeting. Engage with your supervisor. How can we bring this in? Because it's only going to benefit the employer as well. But I won't talk about that too much, because we do have the workplace wellness session coming up. So I'll just leave it at that, and we'll move on to our physical wellness before we run out of time.
Yes. And what I like about the physical wellness piece, because often that's what we think of, oh, we got to go to the gym, we got to hit a yoga class, we got to do something. But it is as much about the sleep part. And, I wasn't necessarily the biggest believer in Fitbits and things like that. I like to just pay attention to what my body is telling me. But certainly having the opportunity to just try out a Fitbit, it really gave me this good perspective on the sleep side of things, because you can think you're sleeping well, but then for some reason you're still really tired the next day. And it's how much of that sleep are you getting, that good sleep? And that's what the Fitbit was able to tell me. And I just had to adjust the time. And I think it's okay. It doesn't matter what that time is. Of course, we know there's constraints around whether you work or you got to get the kids somewhere. But it is adjusting it to say, if you're the 8 hour sleep person and that's what you need and that's what's optimal for you, then making that adjustment. But how can you also create the time and space that you're not, oh my goodness, I need to be asleep right now to get my 8 hours in. We've got to prepare that just like we would for kids. I don't know how many hours we talk about getting a great schedule for kids in place, but yet as parents, are just people, as we become adults, we let that go. Like somehow we don't need that anymore.
And we
But
forge ahead no matter
yes,
what the consequences.
absolutely. And then we wonder why by the end of the week, we're so done. We have nothing left. And that's the time when we're thinking, oh my goodness, but this is when I want to connect with, to fulfill that social piece or to fill that emotional piece. I want to connect with my partner, whatever it might be, but I've got nothing left. So that's why we don't like to separate out the work-life balance. We figure that you need to really encompass the whole life to say, okay, if I have to address the sleep issue, what does that need to look like in order for me to be able to do the walks, if that's what I've got left, in order to help my physical wellness or whatever it is that works for you, but it's challenging yourself again to really see what it is. And then I always like to say, when is it time to seek outside help, right?
Mhm.
I think that's so important not to leave that behind.
Absolutely. Sorry. Um, and also with the physical wellness, for example, like Shannon said, the importance of sleep or not, and when you're not getting enough sleep, really noticing where is that affecting. For me, it would definitely be my emotional side, my social as well, because I'm not very, I just end up isolating myself if I'm not feeling physically well, and then I'm not engaging in what I need to keep the other areas at their optimal levels as well.
And I know for myself that I have to follow certain routines. I have dogs, so I make sure that their food is ready to go in the morning. If Paul and I used to leave around 7 o'clock. If we were driving to Wetaskiwin, then I'm going to make sure that even right down to whatever clothes I'm about to wear the next day, I have that set out, that I have whatever papers and things, I have that all ready to go. Or my whole night of sleep is about, do I have the right things to take with me? Do I have enough prepared for me to go? Even though people wouldn't necessarily know that about me, but I know it's something that I need to do for myself to stay balanced the next day, to get a good sleep, or my mind is just racing about what it has to do.
And I don't know what happened here with the
Yes.
with the pictures, why they're upside down, but yeah,
Well, and I think
sleep, exercise, and nutrition are three major components when it comes to developing your physical wellness.
And I think that was something that was really brought up in that video, is about the nutrition piece and what that means. And I think we saw that something across the pandemic, people started cooking for themselves.
Mhm.
because they were at home, instead of just racing home. But it's also about that preparation piece too, that maybe that racing piece is still existing, but maybe it is a Sunday where you can make a schedule about what's going to happen during the week. Because nothing worse than having great plans, but then not having the right things in the fridge. And then the next thing we're doing is we're not making the choices that we need to for that kind of optimal nutrition piece as well.
And Shannon added the kayak picture. And I mean, I know we're so amazing. We can kayak upside down and, but I'm just kidding. But this picture just reminds me of the importance of communication, like Shannon was talking about earlier. And when you communicate with people, no matter what the relationship is, it's allows you to still do what you need to do for your wellness, and it just broadens that understanding for others. So for example, with kayaking, Shannon and I love to kayak on the river, and that is a big trip. That's typically a 5 to 8 hour day, and you have to continually be paddling. And I know for myself, sometimes I'm just physically not feeling well enough to maybe do that. And so for me to say to Shannon, yeah, I really want to go kayaking today, but I don't think I can do that trek today. It's easier. I don't have to make an excuse. I don't have to go and then stress about that I'm going to feel worse tomorrow. And so it's through that communication, then she'll say, oh, yeah, that's no problem. Why don't we just go out to Arm Lake today then? And so again, really communicating, first of all, figuring out what your needs are, and then developing that ability to communicate them to others is crucial for your well-being to be in balance. So here's our personal reflection for this one, and we don't really have a lot of time to go through this again. As you're now connected to Sage Wellness Connection, keep looking for our workshops, because we do offer a 4-part series as far as the 8 dimensions of wellness, and we can go into this a little bit deeper as well. So if you're interested in that, just drop us a message and we can let you know when we'll be doing another session.
And we wanted to say, because we've been working with the Rural Mental Health project, that this community connection piece is really important to us. We're really the whole idea of the program is to build some capacity within the community. So because of that, we've added this mental health resource piece to our website. So we're looking for people that could be included in that resource. And it is not what you would think in your traditional senses of, oh, we're looking for psychologists or psychiatrists, or medical doctors. Of course we are. Of course they play a role in that too. But there's a whole lot of other people within our communities that could provide support. Maybe they're providing a support group for parents with kiddos that are still in elementary school. Maybe it's for seniors. They have a group that meets weekly. So it's whatever kind of service that you're providing. We want to make sure it's included in that, and people have an ability to connect with that resource in the easiest possible way.
And so that is under our website, sagewellnessconnection.com, and then just click on the mental health resource hub.
Mm-hmm. So, and before we go today, we just probably only going to have a chance to do the one scenario, just going to put it together about the 4 pieces of the wellness wheel that we're talking about today, which is the emotional, social, spiritual, and physical. And we thought if we run it through a scenario, sometimes that makes it a little bit easier when we're looking to another person, how each one of those things would be impacted. So what we're looking for today is, if you were in contact with this 12-year-old boy, you knew that he was struggling with school, that friends were an issue, and he was saying that he was feeling really lonely. He has been teased about his weight, different things. So he just doesn't know what to do, where to start, where to begin. So if you were that person in the community, what would we suggest? What would we say are in those pieces of the wellness wheel are being impacted or maybe not filled up as much as they should be for this young man. And then what would we suggest he could do? So if we look at that
On
annotate.
your annotate, sorry, Shannon.
Yeah, no, that's okay. If you didn't see it before, it's just if you scroll to the top, you'll see your view options and then look for annotate. You can also change up the color of your pen if you want to, but certainly don't have to. But if you want to throw your ideas on there about what piece of the wellness wheel or any, maybe more than one, are impacted for this young man, and what would be some of our suggestions of where we would think maybe he could get some support. We just have a few minutes, about 3 minutes, that we could do that. And if you're having trouble with the annotation, by all means, you could also put it in the chat, or you can just speak and we can put it on there for you.
Yeah, you definitely don't have to draw it out or write it out. So can you just repeat that, Shannon? So we're looking at, because now that I have the annotate button up for myself, I can't see the writing. So it is, what areas of his wellness are impacted?
Mm-hmm.
And where would you, what would you suggest for him for support? Okay.
We have a great one, creating social connections with individuals with common interests. Absolutely. Instructor-led youth group style. Absolutely. And I know, like here in Wainwright, there are a few youth groups. Whoops, one just went over top. That the church actually offered. And maybe that makes some connections outside of, if he's not on any kind of teams, whether from the debating team to the hockey team. I know here that hockey is such an important thing. So not that it's just important, but it's very focused on, because it's something that's been here. So essentially people think you're either on a hockey team or you must dance, that we don't have as many things, but we actually do have more to reach out to other interests for our kiddos as well.
I really like this one, offering support to the parents. I think that's so often people feel very isolated when their children are struggling. Yes. So that's a huge one.
I think that's a great idea. Offer to volunteer somewhere. I think that's such a great one to, we looked at this when we were providing a high risk, kids that are identified as high risk in Calgary, is doing volunteer work within their community, because it is in research has shown that once you do work within your community, it is way harder to vandalize or steal from the people you know. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Obviously, we can see that, but it is way harder, and it builds a connection for kiddos.
Yes, absolutely. And it builds up their sense of accomplishment and confidence as well. So if anyone else has anything to put on, I'm just looking at the time here. We're pretty close to the end. And then do you want to save it, Shannon, maybe?
Yeah, I can certainly save it too. And I think that's the point that we were just trying to make by looking at this scenario, is there are so many resources, but we need everybody within the community in order to find them. Because not everybody knows everything, but lots of people know someone that, it's like the suggestion of the parents. Not everybody would think that route first, but it's so important that I look at the difference. Paul and I have been offering a parent support group for over 8 years. And the connections that are made has really validated me in our belief of doing this, that it supported families where they didn't feel supported before, because it had people that were in similar
circumstances.
That's the word I'm looking for. And it just makes a difference. And we've had parents report on that it just fills them up, that they know they're still going to walk back into the challenging times that they have, but it just fills them up in a different way. And that's what we're hoping with this mental health and wellbeing resource hub, is that we'll be able to find those pieces for people somewhere to fill them up. Whatever aspect that maybe is lagging right now or challenged right now, is that maybe that resource hub isn't about spending money always. There is a time and place for that for sure, but maybe there's just people within your community that maybe it's just about a community garden and now you're connected and you've got a social connection with like-minded people. That sometimes
Absolutely.
can be the very thing that, creates that physical piece because you're out, creates that social piece because now we have some connection, has reduced some stress because you've learned a new hobby that can reduce that stress. So it's impacted your emotions as well. So it can encompass a whole pile of areas for you in just one small connection.
Absolutely. Well, we'll wrap up for today, and we really appreciate everyone joining us, and we hope to see you at one of our next sessions. And I'll just hand it over to you, Kendra.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. That was fantastic. So big thank you, obviously,